friends, I'm Marley Bird, and this is the Tournament of Stitches 2020, Section 4 of the crochet version. By this point in this mystery make-along, you have worked up 3 beautiful mosaic stitch sections, and we are going to continue with that theme. Today's mosaic stitch is one that I charted up myself and had a lot of fun making, and I know that once you create this one, you are going to love it as well. This stitch along is going along so beautifully, and I am loving seeing all of your work. If you have not gotten started yet, it is not too late. Simply click on the link in the video description box right down there, right below this video. That link will take you to the blog post all about the Tournament of Stitches. At the bottom of that blog post, you will find a direct link to each section of this mystery make-along. If you want to follow along with the crochet version, make sure you select the sections for the crochet version. If you want to follow along with the knitted version, make sure you select the sections for the knitted version. As each section is released, it is linked below in that blog post. So at the very end of this knit along, all 10 sections will be linked, including the border. By this point in your project, you have 3 completed sections. They should look a little something like this. Can I just tell you how much I love this one? This is section 3, and I thought it was so beautiful, both in the crochet version and the knitted version. It is super wonderful. One thing that's wonderful about this Tournament of Stitches is I've designed this piece to use the mosaic technique throughout. So you don't have to learn anything new from what you've already learned from the previous 3 sections. But we are going to be following along with a different color sequence for each section, giving you a different mosaic look. I have worked along with you in each of the sections thus far, and I will begin to work along with you in this section as well to get you started. But overall, it's the same concept. We will use chains when we are skipping over stitches that will eventually be double crochets in following rows, and we will be working single crochets in all of the stitches going back and chains over top of the chains. Pretty simple stuff. Okay, let's take a look at the diagram and the chart for this mosaic section. Let's begin with the chart because I think it's a really great pictorial representation of what your stitch pattern is going to look like. You can see in this stitch pattern that what I did was I took a square and then I took a smaller square and bumped it out right there. And then I was like, okay, what if I take this whole thing, flip it around and put that over here? And then what if I take all that, flip it around and put it up here? And then what if I take that and flip it around and put it over here? I just really kind of played around with some square geometric shapes. Couple that with changing colors every 2 rows and making sure that we work all of the mosaic stitches in that mosaic technique, we're going to get a really cool looking stitch pattern. Now, as we look at the stitch diagram, it looks pretty complicated, but we know at this point that it's really not that complicated. It shows us very simply how the stitches are going to look as we're working along these rows. I love stitch diagrams, and I'm sure by this point you're well aware of that, and this is no exception. One thing about this stitch diagram to me, in this one in particular, is I have a very hard time seeing the actual shape of what we will be creating. However, I know that all of these double crochets that are going down into that single crochet that we skip when we are working these chains on those rows, I know that those will create that look that we just saw in the chart. Following along with this diagram, once again, it does not show the first 8 rows of color A, but these are 8 rows of single crochet with the color A, and then you do 2 rows of single crochet with color B, just down and back. It's when we get to row 11 that the stitch pattern or the mosaic technique really begins. We start off with color C. We will work a single crochet into the first stitch, and then we will chain 2, skip a stitch, and then single in the next 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. chain 2, skip a stitch, so on and so forth. We follow that all the way down. Just like in previous sections, we will always chain one more than the number of stitches we are skipping. So we skip 1, we chain 2. We skip 1, we chain 2. We skip 2, we chain 3. We skip 1, we chain 2. We skip 1, we chain 2. And then working on our row back, which is our wrong side row, we simply single crochet into the single crochets or the double, depending what you have. So I like to think of it as I'm going to single crochet in all of the stitches, and then I want to make sure I chain over top of the chains that I did previously. Just like before, when you get to the following row, wherever you come up to where those chains are, that's where you will work a double crochet, drop down 2 rows below, working into the same color as the color you have on your hook with that double crochet. Very simple stuff. Let's go ahead and work through some of these rows together to get you started. It doesn't matter to me whether you follow along with the chart or the written words or the diagram. It's all available to you. Work what works best. Work with what works best for you. I will show you this time around that I will be following the diagram, and I'm going to use Post-it notes. And this is what I'm going to do. I'm blocking off essentially everything above row 12. And I know that my row 11 and 12 are in black, so I'm only going to pay attention to all of the black symbols I see here. When I have to go to the next 2 rows, my next right side and wrong side row, I'll move my Post-it notes up so I can make sure that I see those stitches when I need to see them. All right, so notice I did not put my Post-it note down here. I always put it above the stitches I'm working because I want to be able to see what I'm working into down here, okay? I don't want those blocked off. All right, so that's a little tip. I don't know if I had said that in previous videos, but there it is now. We are good to go. Let's bring in my work. As you're working along now, as this scarf gets a little bigger, I like to kind of roll it up so that it has the fabric out of the way for me as I'm turning it around and working all of those stitches. I used a marker there to hold my loop that was available to me, and here we go. So I have my color C on my hook, and I'm ready to get started. So I will begin with a single crochet into that first stitch, chain 2, skip a stitch, single crochet in the next 6 stitches. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6, chain 2, skip a stitch, single crochet in the next 6, chain 3, skip 2, single crochet in the next 6. When you get to the end, don't forget to chain 2 and single crochet in that last stitch. Chain 1 and turn, or turn and chain 1. It really doesn't matter. As you're working back, you simply single crochet in each one of the stitches and make sure you do chains over top of all of the chains. So here at the beginning, I would single crochet in the first, and then chain 2, skip that chain 2, and then I'll single crochet in all of the singles. Continue this all the way down the row. When you get to the end of the row, don't forget that you will be changing colors. So partially complete that last single crochet, and then pick up your new color, yarn over, and pull through. Chain 1 and turn, or turn and chain 1, doesn't really matter. And we are ready for the next row. So it's at this point I will pause here, grab my diagram, take my Post-it, and I move it up and I move it above rows 13 and 14. Now, rows 13 and 14 are blue, so as I'm working across this row, I need to make sure I'm paying attention to all of the blue stitches, especially the ones that drop down that are the double crochets that are worked 2 rows below. I'm going to ignore anything that is black because those are worked on the following row, okay, when we get up here to row 15. Does that make sense? Okay, so I'm following everything that's in blue all the way across this row. So put that up there. And it just so happens my color B is blue. So that's kind of convenient. And I begin. So I start off with a single crochet in that first stitch. There are chains right there. I'm going to go in front of the chains down here to the skipped stitch I did and make sure I work into that skipped stitch in front of those chains. Okay, just like before. Now I will chain 2, skip 1 stitch, single crochet in the next, chain 2, skip 1 stitch, single crochet in the next 2 stitches. So there's 1 and 2, chain 2, skip 1 stitch, double crochet 2 rows below in front of those chains, chain 2, skip a stitch, single crochet in the next 4, chain 2, skip a stitch. This is where I will drop down and I'll do 2 double crochets. I'll do a double in the first one, make sure it's in front of those chains, and do a double in the next one. Make sure it's in front of those chains. Chain 2, skip a stitch, single crochet in the next, chain 2, skip a stitch, single crochet in the next 2. There's 1 and 2, chain 2, skip a stitch, double crochet 2 rows below in front of those chains, chain 2, skip a stitch, single crochet in the next 4. So let's see, skip 1, 1, 2, 3, and 4, chain 2, skip a stitch, double crochet 2 rows below in front of those chains, and end the row with a single crochet at the very end. Okay, so that completes the first drop down row, which is actually our row 13. So now I will chain 1 and turn, and as I'm working back, I will put a single crochet into each one of the stitches, and wherever there are chain 2 sections, I will chain 2 over top of those sections. This is pretty easy stuff. This is one of the times that you really don't have to look at the chart. You simply will essentially read your crochet work. So if it's a stitch, you just single crochet into it. The easiest thing to do here is to miss a stitch and get off count. You do not want to do that. So be diligent, take your time, be patient, and just get each stitch as you go across the row. The last stitch of the row, partially complete that single, drop the old color, pick up the new, and complete with that new color. So that way the new color is on your hook. Chain 1, turn your work. So now I go ahead and I grab my diagram and I move my Post-it note up. So I will remove it from that part. And again, I move it up 2 rows. The reason I move it up 2 rows is because I know that I'm using this color for these 2 rows, and it just makes it easier for me to see. So I can see right here, row 15, I'm using color C, and I'm going to begin working across this row. And anytime I see black, I'll make sure that I work the black stitches, okay, as they're represented. Let's go ahead, put that back. Grab my work, and my color C is my creme de mint color, and I'm ready to get started. Start off with my single crochet to begin with. I immediately jump into the chain 2, skip a stitch. There's a double crochet, it's going to happen right there. So I drop down 2 rows below, make sure I work my double crochet in front of those chains. Okay, so let's work across this row together here. Pretty easy stuff. Chain 2, skip a stitch, double crochet 2 rows below in front of those chains. Oops. Now I'm going to single crochet in the next 2 stitches. Here's another double crochet that I work 2 rows below. Single crochet into that next single. Double crochet 2 rows below. Single crochet in the next 3. So there's 1, 2, 3. Chain 2. Skip a stitch. Double crochet 2 rows below. Chain 1, 2, 3. Skip 2. Double crochet 2 rows below in front of those chains. Make sure you're always in front of those chains. Chain 2. Skip a stitch. Double crochet 2 rows below. Single crochet in the next 2 singles. Double crochet in the stitch 2 rows below. Single in the next single. Double crochet in the single 2 rows below. Single crochet in the next 3 stitches. Chain 2. Double crochet in that skipped stitch 2 rows below. Chain 2. Skip 1, single crochet in that last stitch. Here's what it should look like right now. I think I've said to work in 2 rows below like 3 different ways, just trying to make sure that it makes sense to all of you. So far, I think this looks pretty good. This looks pretty good. So I will chain 1, and I'm going to work my stitches all the way back. You do the same thing, and then I will meet you back on row 17, okay? On the last stitch of the row, don't forget you need to change colors. Always change colors on the last draw through on that last stitch. Chain 1, turn your work. This is what you should have so far working up. So let's go ahead and grab our diagram, and we will move our post-it note up. So as I mentioned, we're going to meet on row 17. So I move it up so that I'm covering up anything above row 18. So 17 and 18. These are using color B, which are blue stitches, are, they're blue on here. So I'm just going to pay attention to all of the blue stitches working across 17 and 18. All right, so put that right up there. As I mentioned before, conveniently, my color B is blue, so it makes it very easy to remember that. I start off here with a single crochet in the first single crochet. And then I will double crochet 2 rows below into that skipped stitch, making sure I'm in front of those chains. Chain 2, skip a stitch, double crochet 2 rows below in front of those chains. Now I will single crochet in the next 3 stitches. So 1, 2, and 3. Now I chain 2, skip a stitch, single crochet in the next, chain 2, skip a stitch, single crochet in the next 2. So there's 1 and 2, chain 2, skip a stitch, double crochet into that skipped stitch 2 rows below, chain 2, skip a stitch. I have a double crochet in each one of those. So there's the first one. There is the second one. Chain 2, skip a stitch, double crochet into that skipped stitch 2 rows below, single crochet in the next 3, chain 2, skip a stitch, single crochet in the next, chain 2, skip a stitch, single crochet in the next 2. So there's 1 and there's 2, chain 2, skip a stitch, double crochet 2 rows below, chain 2, skip a stitch, double crochet 2 rows below, and then finish with that single crochet in that last stitch there. So as I set this down, you can take a look at what it's starting to do. We're starting to get those squares that it's like the setup for the squares that I talked about at the very beginning. So I am going to chain 1 and work my way back. Why don't you join me for row 19 after you do the exact same thing? In the last stitch of the row, make sure you change colors just like before. Chain 1 and turn. Make sure, I always get my yarns kind of mixed up when I turn. Once again, here's what we have on our fabric. We will grab our stitch diagram, move the Post-it note up above row 20 so that way I can see rows 19 and 20. Again, these stitches are in color C and they are black, so I will pay attention to all of the black stitches working across row 19 and then row 20. All right, nothing new here. This is a combination of the same thing we have been working along so far. So let's continue on. This would be row 19 and I'm using my color B, which is the green. So I start off with a single crochet in the first stitch and immediately jump into a chain 2. Skip a stitch, double crochet 2 rows below and make sure it's in front of those chains. And then I'm going to single crochet in the next 4. Double crochet in front of the chains into the stitch 2 rows below, chain 2, skip a stitch, double crochet into the skip stitch 2 rows below in front of those chains. It's a whole different way to say it, right? Then I have to single crochet in the next 2 stitches. So there's 1, there's 2, double crochet 2 rows below, single crochet in the next, double crochet 2 rows below, chain 3, skip 2, double crochet 2 rows below, single crochet in the next 4, double crochet 2 rows below, chain 2, skip a stitch, double crochet 2 rows below, single crochet in the next 2, double crochet in that skip stitch 2 rows below, single crochet in the next stitch, double crochet in that stitch 2 rows below, chain 2, skip a stitch, single crochet in the last stitch. Boom. All right, let's take a look here. Can you see the shape really coming into play? Gosh, that's pretty. All right, so I will chain 1 and turn, working my row 20 back just like before. I will place stitches into each one of the stitches and chains over top of each of the chains. In the last stitch of the row, don't forget to change colors. I know you're tired of me saying it, but I have to remind you because one of you is going to forget. I know you are. Leave me a comment. Let me know which one of you forgot to change colors. You were like, don't, and you had to go back and fix it. It happens. I know it happens. All right, so we've changed colors. Here's what our work looks like after we worked our way back. We have to move our Post-it note up. Really helps me keep track of where I am by using these Post-it notes. I know that some of you like to use washi tape or a magnetic board. Yeah, that's how you say it, that are usually used for embroidery. I really like the Post-it notes. I think they work out great. All right, just like before, we are on row 21. We are using color B, and I'm going to follow along with the blue stitches. So I start off with the single crochet, and then I immediately jump into my double crochet 2 rows below in front of those chains. Then I chain 2, skip a stitch, single crochet in the next 4. So 1, 2, 3, 4, chain 2, single crochet 2 rows below. Make sure you're in front of those chains. Single crochet in the next 3, chain 2, skip a stitch, single crochet in the next 2, double crochet into each one of these skipped stitches 2 rows below. So there's 1 and there's a second one. Chain 2, skip a stitch, single crochet in the next 4 stitches, chain 2, skip a stitch, double crochet 2 rows below, single crochet in the next 3, chain 2, skip a stitch, single crochet in the next 2, double crochet in the skip stitch 2 rows below, and then single crochet in that last single crochet. Let's take a look. Ha! Look at those squares. There they are. I told you, little square, little square, little square, little square. Pretty cool. Okay, so I'm going to chain 1 and work my way back, doing the same thing that we've done all along, putting a single crochet in the top of each of the stitches and chains over top of the chains. You guys know what I'm going to say, right? Switch colors in that last stitch. Chain 1. Let's turn our work. Looking really good. Let's move our Post-it note up. So I am blocking everything above row 24. The color of the symbols is black, which means we are on color C, and I make sure I follow all of the symbols in black. You guys getting the hang of this so far? This row is pretty fun because we have a lot of the chain threes, because there's going to be a lot of those double crochets. I shouldn't say double crochets. Those like sets of 2 double crochets coming down the next time we change colors. So let's get through this row. I like it. I like it a lot. So much fun. All right, so I'm back to my color C. I'm on row 23. Single crochet in the first stitch, immediately chain 2, skip a stitch, double crochet 2 rows below. Okay, and away we go. So a single crochet in the next 2 stitches, so 1 and 2, chain 3, skip 2 stitches, double crochet 2 rows below into that next skip stitch. Single crochet in the next 2 stitches, chain 3, skip 2, double crochet into that skipped stitch 2 rows below. Single crochet in the next 2 stitches, chain 3, skip 2, double crochet into that skip stitch 2 rows below. Single crochet in the next 2 stitches, chain 3, skip 2, double crochet into that skip stitch 2 rows below. Single crochet in the next 2 stitches, chain 3, skip 2, double crochet into that skipped stitch 2 rows below. Single crochet in the next 2 stitches, chain 2, skip 1, single crochet in the last stitch. Can you see that? Okay. Once again, we will chain 1 and turn, or turn and chain 1, doesn't matter, and work our way back. That last stitch, once again, don't forget, change colors and turn your work. Okay. Here we go. Look how pretty that is. Goodness gracious, that is gorgeous. All right, so I'm going to move my Post-it note up. And this one's going to be a fun one because there's quite a few double crochets that get created on this row. All right, so we are following row 25. These are blue symbols, which means it's color B. So every time I see a blue symbol on row 25, I want to make sure I do that stitch. So you can see here there's 1 double crochet that drops down here, but then we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 sets of 2 double crochets. We want to make sure we get all of them working across the row. Okay, let's move this up here, bring this over, get this blue color back on our hook and get started. So did I chain 1? I don't think I chained 1 yet, so I'm going to chain 1. There we go. Did I chain 1? I think I did chain 1. Let me go back. No, I did not. Okay, so I got the yarn in there, chained 1, now turn. Here we go. So I will single crochet in the first, double crochet 2 rows below into that skipped stitch, single crochet in the next 2. So there's 1 and 2. Chain 2, skip a stitch, Then I have 2 double crochets right here. So I'll do the first one, and then the second one. Single crochet in the next 2 single crochet, chain 2, skip a stitch, double crochet in the skipped stitch below, double crochet in the next skip stitch below, single crochet in the next 2, chain 2, skip 1, double crochet in the skip stitch 2 rows below, double crochet in the skip stitch 2 rows below, single crochet in the next 2, chain 2, skip 1, double crochet in the skip stitch 2 rows below, double crochet in the next skip stitch 2 rows below, single crochet in the next 2, chain 2, skip a stitch, double crochet in the next skip stitch 2 rows below, double crochet in the next skip stitch 2 rows below, single crochet in the next 2, chain 2, skip 1, double crochet in the skip stitch 2 rows below, and single crochet in the last stitch. Oh, I think that is just so neat. Goodness, I love that. Okay, so I'm going to work my way back now. I usually do a chain 1 and then turn, so that's what I will do here. Let's do this and work our way back. This would be row 26. Last stitch, change colors, chain 1 and turn. Let's turn this way. Looks pretty good. I'm going to bring my diagram in, move my post-it up, and here we are. We are on row 27, which is color C, which are black symbols. So I work across the row and follow along with the black symbols. So I have my color C on my hook. Start off with a single crochet into that first stitch, chain 2, skip a stitch, single crochet in the next 2, so there's 1 and 2, double crochet in that skipped stitch 2 rows below, single crochet in the next 3, chain 2, skip a stitch, double crochet into the skip stitch 2 rows below, single crochet, whoops, accidentally got that blue yarn in there. I don't want to do that. All right, so single crochet in the next 4, double crochet into that skipped stitch 2 rows below, chain 3, skip 2, single crochet in the next 2, double crochet into that skip stitch 2 rows below, single crochet in the next 3 stitches, chain 2, skip a stitch, double crochet into the skip stitch 2 rows below, single crochet in the next 4, double crochet into that skip stitch 2 rows below, chain 2, skip a stitch, single crochet in that last stitch. You guys want to see what it looks like? So here we are after row 27. I will chain 1 and turn and continue with the same path back as before. In that last stitch, don't forget to change colors. Chain 1 and turn. Take a look at what we have. It's really starting to look really neat. I think the stitch pattern is so cool. All right, so we're almost near the end. I'm going to go ahead and just keep finishing this off with you guys, because why not at this point, right? Might as well just get this done. So we are on row 29, which means we're back to color B. I'm going to pay attention to all of the blue stitches working across this row. So I've got my blue on my hook. I already did my chain 1 when I turned, and I'm ready to get started. So I start with my single crochet in that first stitch, and I immediately do my double crochet 2 rows below in front of those chains. Chain 2, skip a stitch, single crochet in the next stitch, chain 2, skip a stitch, single crochet in the next 2 stitches, chain 2, skip a stitch, double crochet in front of those chains into that skip stitch, chain 2, skip a stitch, single crochet in the next 4 stitches, chain 2, skip a stitch. We have 2 doubles that need to go down here, so there's the first one and there's the second one, chain 2, skip a stitch, single in the next stitch, chain 2, skip a stitch, single in the next 2 stitches, chain 2, skip a stitch, double crochet 2 rows below, chain 2, skip a stitch, single crochet in the next 4, chain 2, skip a stitch, double crochet 2 rows below, and single crochet in that last stitch. You see it? All right, so once again on my wrong side row, I chain 1 and turn my work and work into all the stitches on the way back and work chains over top of the chains. In the last stitch of the row, you know what to do. Turn, let's turn this way. Let's take a peek. Ooh, that looks so cool. We are so close to the end. Let's grab our diagram here and we will move this up above row 32. Oops. Let's see here, right there. So I am back here. We're on row 31. We're with color C. I'm paying attention to all of the black stitches working across this row. Okay. Pretty easy stuff. We got this by this point. I'm sure a lot of you are like, oh man, this is great. I'm understanding the chart. So much fun. All right, so we are back to color C. Start off with our single crochet right down there. I don't need to hang on to that blue. I'm gonna do a little yarn management here so I don't get them mixed up. There we go. And then I chain 2, skip a stitch, double crochet 2 rows below, chain 2, skip a stitch, double crochet 2 rows below, single crochet in the next 2. So there's 1 and 2, double crochet 2 rows below, single crochet in the next stitch, double crochet 2 rows below. Not a lot of chains on this row. Single crochet in the next 3 stitches. Now we get some chains. We have a chain 2, skip a stitch, double crochet 2 rows below, chain 3, skip 2 stitches, double crochet into the skip stitch 2 rows below, chain 2, skip a stitch, double crochet into that skip stitch 2 rows below, single crochet in the next 2, double crochet into that skip stitch 2 rows below, single crochet in the next stitch, double into the skip stitch 2 rows below, single crochet in the next 3 stitches, chain 2, skip a stitch, double crochet into that skip stitch 2 rows below, chain 2, skip a stitch, single in that last stitch. That's what we got. Gonna turn our work, chain 1 or chain 1 and turn, doesn't really matter, and then work our way back, just like always. Last stitch of the row. You know what to do. Let's take a peek. Oh, it's just such a fun little stitch pattern. I just love it. All right, so we are near the end, you guys. We're going to move this up, right up here above row 34. And we are going to be using color B again and following along with all of the blue stitches along the row. Oh, I've been sitting here a while. Okay. Color B. Make sure I get it all situated. All right. Single crochet in the first, single crochet. Double crochet 2 rows below. And we are off to the races. Chain 2. Skip 1. Double crochet into the skipped stitch 2 rows below. Okay, single crochet in the next 3. Let's get some yarn here. Chain 2, skip 1, single crochet in the next, chain 2, skip 1, single crochet in the next 2, chain 2, skip 1, double crochet 2 rows below, chain 2, skip 1, 2 double crochets 2 rows below. So there's the first one. Here is the second one. Chain 2, skip a stitch, double crochet into the skip stitch 2 rows below, single crochet in the next 3, chain 2, skip 1, single crochet in the next, chain 2, skip 1, single crochet in the next 2, so there's 1, there's 2, chain 2, skip 1, double crochet into that skip stitch 2 rows below. Just lost my train of thought. Okay, chain 2 and skip 1, double crochet into that skip stitch 2 rows below, and finish with a single crochet at the end of the row. All right, so that there, ladies and gentlemen, is row 33, and we turn our work and go back for 34, just like we do all of the other wrong side rows. The end of the row. Oop. Trying to do some yarn management here as we get closer to the end. Chain 1 and turn. Let's take a peek. Oh, isn't that cool? Oh, it's just so cool. I think it's just fun. All right, so I'm going to bring this down. We are on rows 35 and 36 using the color C. So we will be following the black symbols all the way across and coming back. And that will be the last time we use color C. So we'll be able to cut our color C after this row. And actually, I put that back there. Let's grab this one and away we go. I've already chained 1, so I single crochet in the first and then chain 2, skip a stitch, double crochet into that skip stitch 2 rows below, single crochet in the next 4, double crochet 2 rows below, chain 2, skip a stitch, double crochet 2 rows below, single crochet in the next 2, double crochet 2 rows below, single crochet in the next, single crochet, double crochet 2 rows below, chain 3, skip 2, double crochet in that skip stitch 2 rows below, single crochet in the next 4. Oops, I accidentally skipped one over here. I thought maybe I did. Oh, it looks like I skipped it on the previous row. Look, I only have 3 stitches there because I missed that one right there. So I am just going to fudge. I'm going to fudge it. So I'm going to do 1, 2, 3, and I'm going to put my 4th one like well, it would go right here. So I'm going to put it like right in the top of where it should be. How about that? Look at that. You can tell it all. So 1, 2, 3, 4. And now I'm supposed to do a double crochet 2 rows below. See, you would never be able to tell. Chain 2, skip a stitch, double crochet 2 rows below, single crochet in the next 2. So there's 1 and 2, double crochet 2 rows below, single crochet in the next single, double 2 rows below, chain 2, skip a stitch, single in the last single. It's getting late here, so making silly mistakes. All right, but look, you could never tell. You could just fudge it right there, and it's totally fine. All right, cool. I'm going to work my way back, and then we can cut our color C after we change to our color B. All right, so let's get this going. Make sure I don't skip any on this side. All right, end of the row. We know what to do. And have my color B on my hook. I can go ahead and snip my color C, leaving a nice long tail so that way I can weave it in. I will chain 1 and turn. Take a look at my work. Oh, I think that is so fun. Oh my gosh, I love that so very much. I can bring my stitch diagram down. I can take my final Post-it note off. And what's really great about this row is row 37, I don't have any extra chains. I'm simply going to work those double crochets down in front of and 2 rows below each one of the chains from the previous 2 rows. And then I finish off with just 1 row of single crochet. Okay, pretty simple stuff. So I don't need my Post-it notes for that. I can simply grab my work and just essentially read my crochet. So I single crochet in the first, and then I immediately come up to chain. So I know I'm going to drop down below. And I'm not doing any chains, so I just will work single crochets into each stitch I see until I get to chains again. If it happens to be 2 chains, I know that I'm just doing 1 double crochet. If it happens to be 3 chains, I know I'm doing 2 double crochet. So this 2 chains, so I'm doing 1 double crochet into that skip stitch 2 rows below. Then do my singles into the singles. Come up over here. These are 3 chains, and I have 2 skip stitches, so I know I'm doing my 2 double crochets 2 rows below. To the chains again, so I will drop down and do 1 double crochet 2 rows below, and then come up here to the very end. I know I have 1 more double crochet to complete at the very end here. Double crochet 2 rows below, and then single in that last stitch. Voila! Take a look at that, you guys. Oh, that is so fun. I love that stitch pattern. I think it is so cool. All right, so I'm going to chain 1 and go back just to finish this up. So chain 1, turn my work, and it will be just as easy as single crochets into each stitch all the way across. I will tell you that it is very easy to forget a stitch just by doing these plain single crochets. You know that by this point. So it's always good to just check your stitch count at the end of the row. Make sure that you aren't missing a stitch or anything before we move on to section number 5. I want to also remind you that in the pattern I do have written that I highly recommend weaving in your ends after you finish each section. You'll notice that on mine, I have done a really great job of weaving in my ends after I complete each section. I will be doing the same here again. I encourage you to do the exact same thing. Do not wait to the very end, and certainly do not crochet over your tails. I do not want you to do that. I want you to take the time, grab a tapestry needle or a chenille needle or a large darning needle and weave in those ends. I did provide a link to burying ends, the video that I did with Ann Burke. It's in the pattern. It's in the video description of this video. You will not be disappointed. Now don't forget, on this last stitch, you're supposed to switch to color A. So I don't have my color A over right here, so I'm just going to leave it right there for now. I'm actually not going to turn this around yet because I will take a second here, grab my stitch or my darning needle here. I'm going to thread it, and I am going to take a second and just weave in my tail on the wrong side. Notice when I'm using these really pointy chenille yarn needles, I'm literally just threading it through the yarn itself. I go up and back, and I'm doing it one more time, and voila, that will be nice and secure, especially with the Chic Sheep here. I can do the same down here. I've already tucked in all the other ends that were out, so it's so easy just to get this done right here, right now, without having to worry about doing it all at the same time at the very end. I mean, when you're at the end of a project, the last thing you want to do is weave in your ends. So get it done now. You have time between the sections. Why not? All right, get that done. Snip that. I will go ahead and snip this one, leaving a little tail. I'll switch to color A right there when I get a chance to grab my color A. But for now, I'll put a marker in it so it doesn't go anywhere. Let's see what we have. Oh, look how cool that is. I just love that. I think it is so pretty. It's just fun, and it's completely different. It's unlike any other mosaic stitch pattern you have probably done thus far in your crochet career. It's a lot of fun to create these fun mosaic stitches. I'm having a blast during this tournament of stitches, and I hope you are too. I know this was a really long video, but I figured at least one of these sections I should walk you through the entire section, and so that's what I did here today. If you stuck with me through the whole thing, congratulations. I'm so happy you did. Make sure you have smashed that like button while you're here. Make sure you leave a comment below and let me know that you were with me the whole way and that you finished your section the same time I did. And last but not least, make sure that when you take pictures of your project and you share on social media, use hashtag MarleyBird or hashtag Tournament of Stitches. That way I can find your work and smash your like button. I'm having a great time. I can't wait to see all of your scarves. I'll talk to you again soon. Bye. Thanks so much for joining me on the Marley Bird YouTube channel. If you liked what you saw, don't forget to hit subscribe. I've put a link right over there, or you can watch a couple of the videos I've already selected for you right down there. If you want to follow me on social media, I've put my links right over there. You can have all Marley all the time. Bye guys.